Oh, yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm Candid Stanisci of NLL Lacrosse Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate, leave, comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on NLL Lacrosse Talk, my buddy Gary, who I don't know where he is right now on recovery phase. I think it's fair to say that you enjoyed the playoff series that ended with the Buffalo Bandits winning the NLL championship.
Yeah, my ears finally have stopped ringing from 18,500 people packing KeyBank Center and going absolutely nutty cuckoo at a 13-4 victory. It's one thing to think, that first game was 13-12 and right down to the very last second was a nail biter. And then Colorado comes up with a gem, an absolute gem, 2 days later at their home, winning 16-10 and getting Buffalo, who has been very composed through the entire playoffs, disheveled enough that they were taking penalty after penalty after penalty, and both teams' power plays were at peak. That's just a death sentence. If you're going to sit in the box, literally, you could almost put one on the board. And come game three, the adjustments that Buffalo made, defensively, they did what they did against Toronto, and that completely stifled one of the best offenses in the league. And they did it again to Colorado, whose offense was working really well in both games. Eli McLaughlin had been spectacular throughout the playoffs. Ryan Lee, they stifled them all. Zed Williams, they just couldn't get going. They got one goal per quarter in that last game, and they wound up going to the penalty box a fair amount, which just put Buffalo onto the power play. And with all those people and all that energy and all that emotion, the avalanche started. Pardon the pun with the Colorado thing. But 13-4 was your final. Everybody was talking about if Matt Vince was getting too old for this after game two, which was weird because he had a great playoff to that point. And here he comes in game three, makes 46 saves out of 50 shots, is unbeatable, unflappable. And the Buffalo defense keeps most of these things from the outside with not good looks, blocking shooting lanes, a lot of balls going straight up in the air, kind of like that Toronto series again. And, come rough shot. Now, here's the big thing. Josh Byrne, star for Buffalo, was out game 1 and 2 with apparent concussion problems, was able to play as according to John Tavares, head coach, the day before. That's when they figured he could play. Well, he stepped in, and if you ask Byrne, his first quarter wasn't very good because he kept firing over and missing passes and all kinds of things. Mind you, he had an assist on the first goal. If you ask Tavares, it looked like it never missed a beat. So I would go with Tavares myself. From where I sat up in the press box, he looked good as gold. And one, the Buffalo team relaxed a little bit. Two, Colorado tightened up quite a bit because they couldn't key on one side or the other. And with Byrne there and being able to shoot from anywhere, as well as being able to pass, it kept things upside down. And sure enough, he had a huge third quarter. He had 3 goals in there, 4 goals overall, 7 points in the game. And believe it or not, that wasn't the best. Dane Smith had 2 goals and 7 assists.
He's the guy that really brought the team where they are.
Exactly. He put that team on his back when Byrne was out. He was the consummate guy in every single play throughout the entire playoffs. You may not see a lot of goals, but darn, you saw an awful lot of assists from him. He was in every play. In the Toronto series, he wound up doing both just to, make sure that everybody realized how good a scorer he is, as well as a playmaker. And couldn't happen to a nicer guy, man. Dane Smith is such a good guy that I was so happy to watch him lift that MVP. And more importantly for him, after 4 visits and, we're looking to come up empty again, he got a chance to lift that NLL title. Because a little known fact, Frank, yes, Rochester with Matt Vincent won 3 championships in a row, but if Buffalo would have lost this particular game, they would have been the first champion team to go into the finals 3 times and lose 3 in a row. So kind of glad they didn't have to deal with that part of the monkey on their back either. And they got rid of that 15-year monkey of not being able to win since 2008. And Matt,
they're fifth overall.
Yep, and to solidify his Hall of Fame career, you're talking about 8-time goalie of the year. This is now his 4th NLL championship. Is there anybody better? No.
And the lowest goal total for an opponent in a final.
Absolutely.
I mean, record-breaking.
That's right. 4 goals is a record in any final in NLL history. We kind of knew it, but it was told to us at the press conference just before it began. It was amazing. But if you want a total thing, the right team raised the cup, is all I can say.
They were the favorite going in. I mean, and Colorado wasn't the favorite going in. I mean, this was a favorite over a real live underdog, but the underdog in this case, there were no surprises.
No, they're defending champions, and they really didn't do much tinkering with that team. So yeah, they had that championship hangover, and yeah, it took them a while to get going. But I give it to you this way, kind of like some of the hockey series we'd seen over the years. Edmonton comes to mind a number of years ago against Carolina. For the last month of the season, they were playing playoff lacrosse because every game mattered if they were going to get into the playoffs. So by the time they got rolling in the playoffs, they're full tilt boogie, while other teams had been resting more or less for a month and had to get it cranked up again. So, for them to go through, and they didn't beat slouches, right? They beat San Diego, the number 2 team in the league. They beat Calgary, who was second to the favorite to get out of the West. And here they were in the final. And everybody healthy, because Ryan Lee was missing through most of the year. Same kind of problem. Because remember, when Colorado won it last year, they were missing all 3 of their big guns. So you had to rely strictly on Seth Williams.
That's that momentum.
Strange. Right?
That's that momentum thing.
But you look at Buffalo. Buffalo, last year when they were supposed to win it against Colorado, they were very cocky. They were a very cocky team. They knew they were good. And it caught up to them and bit them. And this year, right from the beginning of the playoffs, because most of the year Buffalo wasn't healthy.
Right.
You're taking a look at big chunks of their lineup, of their offense especially, that weren't in. Chris Kluche was hurt. Tehoka Nanticoke was hurt. Josh Byrne was hurt for a bunch of the year. Chase Fraser only came in near the end of the year. Ian McKay was hurt. Those are huge pieces when you're talking about this bandit lineup. The one constant, as we talked about, was Dane Smith, who was able to put, again, an MVP season in during the year. Now, Buffalo wound up, I don't know if it was smoke and mirrors or just playing talent, just skill, just being able to put people in, guys like Brad McCulley, a former guest of ours, and they fit in and they found rules and they made it work. And they would come away with 1-goal wins, overtime wins. A couple of times they would have that bandits thing and win by 4 or 5. But generally speaking, it came down to the coaching of John Tavares, the defensive coaching of Chugger, and away we went. And they wound up with a 14-4 record, first overall in the NLL. And a couple of games before the end of the season, everybody came back, which gave them the big one was against Toronto, which was going to be who had home field. Winner of that one would have been first in the East. And Buffalo pulled that out by a goal. And while the team wasn't at 100%, they were all there. And what a difference right away having Tehoka Danakok was in their lineup. An absolute bulldozer with great hands who never scores a cheapie. Every one of his goals is a highlight reel goal. But if you're going to be in it, he's going to make all kinds of havoc in front of that net. And you're not going to move him. Big boy. And, you had Chase Fraser, who, again, every time he scores is a highlight reel goal. Pretty amazing. And if you looked at him, was he banged up in this series? Oh, yeah. I believe he limped off most every shift. But did he make it on for the next shift? Yes. And was he flying around, diving around, doing whatever it took to win? Yes, he was. When Buffalo scored, did you see huge celebrations? Not until that last game when it was out of reach. It was business. I give JT Tavares quite a bit of credit there for keeping everybody focused and keeping everybody eye on the prize, as well as the veterans. Guys like Steve Priola, who've been there through all of it and through all these championship runs and all these disappointments, and they weren't going to be denied this time. Now, JT, he's the head coach of the Six Nations Chiefs of MSL this year, his first year back with them. And, they've put it all in now, pretty much try and win this thing. They've gotten Larson Sundown through an acquisition, Ben McIntosh through an acquisition, Brad Cree through an acquisition, let alone the base team that they already had. And, they're looking to, mop it up and stop this apparent 5-peat that Peterborough wants to go on. And we'll see. Peterborough was upset last night by Brampton, of all things, the newly formed Brampton team, which is finding its identity. But, although it's had some rough games against Six Nations, has played Peterborough tough twice. They lost 11-8 once at home last week, and they beat them 14-13 and played probably the most complete game of this young season for them. So, look out. Although the MSL's only got 5 teams in it this year, every game is really, really competitive. Coburg looks good this year. Having Brandon Francis as their new head coach, I think puts in a little bit more feistiness into that lineup. Of course, we know Brandon Francis of Buffalo Bandit fame, let alone Akwesasne coach and a few other places. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting summer.
Most of it's going to have to do with the heightened excitement that does happen now, because now that the pandemic's completely behind us, and all these players and these teams have had a chance to really fire things up. Every season seems to be getting more intense than the one before, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the MSL is going to look like this year. I know you say it's all going to be great, but I can't imagine the fun they're going to have out there. And with JT coming in with a championship, I can't think of a lacrosse person more than him that deserved that win more than anyone.
Absolutely. He's been there behind since the moment he retired. He's been on the bench, whether as an offensive coach or a co-coach, and then the last few years being the sole head coach. But the most telling thing, and this is about his character, is when everybody was celebrating, JT was just sitting back over on the on their home line there, and just taking it all in, watching his fellas having fun. And he made mention of that in the press conference. It's their moment, and just to have fun with it. And afterwards at the post, for a guy who's usually, very calm, you could tell that this was just the cast me out. This was, the cherry on the sundae. He just was ear to ear smiles, fist pumping fans, hugging players. It was just a great time. It was a great atmosphere. And
at home, and winning it at home.
You don't
always win it at home, right? The championships aren't always won at home.
No, and in fact, it's funny because Buffalo mentioned, well, if there was a silver lining to getting our butts handed to us in Game 2, is we got to come back home. But also another aspect of it is Buffalo has been through so much over the last couple of years. Just through the city itself, you're talking about the top shooting. You're talking about the 180 centimeters worth of snow last December without resources, and a number of other catastrophes that happened.
The
You're
end of
talking
their
about
NFL
Mark
season.
Hamlin. I'm sorry.
The end of their NFL season.
Well, yes, but even before that, the Damar Hamlin
Yeah.
thing on football, Monday Night Football, I believe it was Sunday night,
Yep.
Monday Night Football against Cincinnati, and all of that, and of course, the end of their football season, but as well as their hockey season. But they finally had something that they had as a championship, and something to just let loose and have fun, and that they did. And that crowd, from the end of the national anthem, already my ears were ringing. And it's not like I was in Rochester or Saskatchewan with low ceilings where the noise is just
Held in.
contained. Well, you got a place like KeyBank Center, which holds 18,500 people, and had 18,500 people screaming, and boy, did it get loud. And when we were going into the last 10, 12s of the game, and just listening to the crescendo, and then whoosh, there it was. And man, I barely heard that horn, which is one of the most annoying horns around because it's so.
Oh, did we lose Gary? No.
Am I here still?
Yeah, you're here. You left for a second, but you're
Oh,
back.
I got a little message that they might be
Yeah,
losing me, but I'm here.
yeah. The horn kind of created an issue for you. You were still thinking about the horn.
Yeah, as soon as I talk about the horn, I go away. It's it's the beer buzzing thing again. Like, but
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah, and trying to duck champagne because it was flowing in the bars, it was flowing in the dressing rooms, it was flowing all over the place. Nobody was drinking it. Everybody was. And of course, crossing the border, I really didn't want to smell like a brewery.
Now that would be a good idea.
Yeah, well, it's bad enough in the place where I parked. They locked the thing up tight, and my first time at that lot, I go there and I look and I see these fences up and the gates up and everything's, it's like, and there's one car left in the lot and it's mine. And it's like if my car's in jail. And of course, the last couple of times, of course, I knew how to get in and get out, but the first time it's like, it's 1:30 in the morning in Buffalo. What am I going to do? And then finally, your brain starts working. It's like, let's walk around. Oh, here's the entrance here, and off I go. But that initial anxiety was like, oh wow, just another story.
Absolutely. So you found your car. So you had a good time that way. Let's talk a little bit about the season. Let's reflect on the season. Going in, we touched a little bit on the fact that Colorado didn't come in as the underdog. What do you think happened to them, and why? I mean, you referred to a hangover. What happened to them that it's weird? They went into the season as the champ, and then they had a horrible season, but they made it to the final. What is it about that team that makes them so hot and cold, you think? And the series was the same, right? They played
Well,
crazy and then they
Dylan
didn't.
Ward.
Is that about it?
Yeah,
Dylan Ward?
Dylan Ward.
Because they're the
Dylan Ward
definition
is
of
your perennial
inconsistent.
all-star goalie. He's the reason why they won it. He's the reason why they won it last year, really, because he shut down Buffalo entirely, more so than any other aspect of it. When you're looking at it during the year, one of the things that I would say is that they had so many injuries, but it was back and forth, and not being able to get a full lineup in. Ryan Lee out of the lineup hurts. He is their leader. He is their number one scorer. And as soon as he got back in, of course, they started winning again. When you rely too much on Eli and a few other people, it's easy to shut down a team when you're only keying on one or two, as you know.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead. It's okay. Yeah.
I don't know. You look at that team, and they really didn't change much. You still had Tyson Gibson. You still had Dylan Kinnear. You still had Eli McPherson. You still had all these guys in there. But it's just originally we just put it towards the
injuries. I think Gary really
and
did go
even for Six Nations this summer, he is. Am I still with you?
Yeah, you are in and out. A lot of out and some in.
Are we catching anything I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Don't have to look at me as long as you can hear me. Probably do a lot of people a lot of good. But anyways, Joey Capito, when he blew out his Achilles, that was a huge part of their game of transition that wasn't there. On Six Nations, he's on the bench helping Tavares out because he's still not ready to play. But that was such a huge piece, and it took them a while to get other people to be part of that transition. Jalen Chaster did a good job there, but again, it's not Joey Capito. Dylan Kinnear did a good job there. Again, not Capito. Capito is just a lightning bolt and very good at it and has been doing it for a long time. When you're looking at the offense, you still had Connor Robinson. You still had Chris Wardle. You still had Zed Williams. But for some reason, it didn't all mesh together at the. You say 9 wins, and 4 of them were coming at the end. So for right until the last week, we didn't know who the last team was going in, and we didn't know 2 weeks to the end of the season if it was going to be an East team crossing over, namely Philadelphia. But it didn't happen that way. Colorado was able to right the ship enough to get in, and once they got in, it proved it's a different season, and away they went. Because I'm not sure if Philadelphia gets in, does San Diego lose? Probably not. If San Diego gets further, does San Diego give Buffalo a stronger game? Because the one meeting they had this year was an 8-7 Buffalo victory in overtime. So, a lot of ifs. If Colorado wouldn't have been there, would San Diego have made it to the final? Would Calgary have made it? Because again, with the goaltender Christian Del Bianco, any time can steal a game. I keep hearing about the goaltending is it's one thing to expand a league because we have a lot of forwards and defense in there, but goaltending is kind of weak. Well, I tend to disagree. We got guys like Del Bianco. Stigliano's had great times over in the summer and in the winter. A little inconsistent in the winter.
It just means another opportunity for another.
Waiting to get a shot. Riley Hutchcraft's still waiting to get a shot over in Rochester because Hartley's been played so well this year. He really wasn't able to get many looks. So, there's a number of goalies in there. Cam Dunkerley, who came in New York midway through the season because Stephen Orlerman was having trouble. Kevin Orlerman came into New York because Stephen Orlerman was having trouble and got hurt in his first game. So hopefully they all find places. But Cam Dunkerley is also having a great summer in the WLA. So he's just kind of ramped it up into a full swing. Saskatchewan, they were able to give Lane Ruska, a hometown boy, a chance at the end of the year. And he took it and ran with it. And he's playing a lot of Ontario ball right now. He's listed in MSL as well as Ontario Series Lacrosse. I was hoping to talk about Ontario Series Lacrosse with our guest because Cam Milligan was just recently picked up by the Oakville Rock as part of that juggernaut lineup because they're looking. The President's Cup is in Oakville this year, so Jamie's looking to bolster that team. That they left the trophy at home.
Yep, winning it at home.
Like Buffalo. Though they had a rough start losing their first game, they've been a juggernaut since. They had one game. I think they won 27. So, yeah, it is what it is. But lots of things happening. Lots of great games going on. Again, Six Nations is looking fantastic. They had one little blip, losing to Brooklyn in overtime, almost pulling that out. But they've been almost flawless up to this point. So we'll see. We'll see. But, guys like Austin Stotts, the team is just stacked. Just stacked. So, and you're looking at Warren Hill and Dustin Hill in that, going back and forth. So, very competent goaltending as well. So, looking forward to the upcoming NLL season is I'm hoping that Colorado doesn't do too much tinkering. I think they have a great nucleus there. And I would hate to see them rip it apart because they didn't win. Kind of like if Buffalo wouldn't win, should they tear apart the bet? I sure hope that they're able to keep that lineup together. Just as Toronto, I'm hoping that they're able to put that lineup together. Frank, you're back.
Wow.
That was weird. My goodness.
I could hear you.
Well, thank goodness. I am talking loud. But yeah, The Rock, something got exposed, obviously. Buffalo exposed a sore spot. And that was as great a season as Nick Rose had in net all year, because he did have the best goals against. He had 10 games which he held opponents to under 10 goals. He had, in all accounts, an MVP season, a goalie of the year season, even though Kristen Del Bianco won the goalie of the year. Also well deserved. But my theory is if he couldn't win it this year with these numbers, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be able to ever win it. Holochuk has his backup now. You're looking at a guy who's both 6'3", very agile, good goalie.
Much younger.
And also another Six Nations Chiefs player. And, I'd like to see him get a little bit of look. I don't want him just continually counting to 5 and opening and closing the gates. He got a lot of playing time for the last 5 minutes of the games, at least. At least he was actually able to get into games this year, whereas backups in the past haven't been able to get off the bench. But, like I say, Buffalo exposed something with teams that were able to go east-west or west-east on Rose and being agile enough to change shots midway through their air travel. Rose is a great angle goalie. He's a really, really solid player. His game has upped 1,000% since Brandon Miller came back as the goaltending coach. But there's definitely things that were exposed in that playoff series. And it wasn't just a one-off because in a best 2 out of 3 in both games, they were ugly. And the Buffalo defense shut down an absolute juggernaut of an offense that had gone run roughshod throughout the league all year.
That's what puts pressure on a goaltender. That's the kind of thing that Rose and any goaltender on a team that plays against a team that has a great defense. The goaltenders, the pressure on the goaltender, we see it in sports all the time where, and then they turn around and, the goaltender is the reason why you won. And of course, the goaltender on the other side feels as though they're the reason the team lost. And that's the hard part about, you need that support. And Toronto couldn't do it over Buffalo.
Right. And I don't want to just be harping on Rose because you know what? The defense let him down. And this was the best defense in the league for the last 2 years. And there were a number of times, if you rewatch any of these games, and painfully I did, there were a number of times where they were standing around. They weren't doing the shifts. They weren't getting over. They weren't getting into the shooting lanes or passing lanes. And Buffalo was able to do pretty much what they wanted. Halifax gave them a tough one also. And I think between the two is where they formed that game plan. And, it's no fluke when you lose 14-5 and then come back the next night and lose 17-8. These aren't flukes. It's not a 13-12 or
Bit of a
10-9
system
game.
problem. A bit of a system problem.
This was something that they absolutely mapped out, blueprinted, and practiced, and they put it onto a tee, and they started forming that on the last game that Toronto played of the season, the second last game that Buffalo played, with their full lineup. And again, having a guy like Tehoka Nanticoke in front and just creating all kinds of havoc, which opens up shooting lanes and creates a double team on him, in which he's just going to pick him up and carry him with him anyways. But Buffalo had everything in that. They were the most well-rounded team, healthy. When it was just Smith and Byrne, when you didn't have Chase Fraser or Nanticoke in there or Kluche, you could key on Byrne or key on Smith and have your goalie key on the shooter, whichever one they're not keying on. But once you had Fraser there, especially Nanticoke, who was going to clear out everything, having Kluche off to the side for his quick sticks and a hell of a shot. And then add in guys like McCulley, who could score from anywhere as well. Very talented, good, but could also drop them. Right? They weren't afraid to mix it up, so they weren't going to be intimidated. So they weren't going to go beat on Chase Fraser. You're going to meet up with Brad McCulley. So
why don't we?
Bryce Sweeting. Sorry.
Why don't we? No, it's okay. We've got a few minutes. We got about 13 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we talk a little bit about the future in the NLL and some of the teams we've had? For me, the curiosity, I'm sure the fans' curiosity, is the status of the Rochester Nighthawks. They became an expansion team.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think they're at? I'm curious about them. I know I focus a little too much on the East, with Toronto being in it and such. But
mm-hmm.
Rochester's a team that they kind of almost excited me this year because of the improvement they made. Do you think they have it in them to compete with Toronto and Buffalo?
Absolutely.
And why?
Absolutely. In fact, I think they're on the rise. As the other teams may be coming this way, they're going this way. Why? For one, they have draft picks. They have a couple of kids that we watched get drafted first round last year that went back to school, which will now be available to play. But you take a look at the lineup that they have at the moment. You're looking at Turner Evans, Thomas Vela, who didn't play very much but is a fantastic player, and we'll see a lot more floor time next year. Curtis Knight, Connor Fields, who came into his own with a 100-plus point season this year, first time that he's been able to do that. Austin Hazen, Coach Hazen's son, who had a fantastic junior career in Brampton and is now having a terrific career with the Peterborough Lakers in summer ball. Also is coming into his own there. Ryan Smith is another one who had a career year this past year and is only going to get better. You're looking at Holden Katoni, who's having another he had 5 goals, 3 assists last night in a loss against Brampton. Tyler Halls, Tyler Biles on defense, also in transition. That's the one thing I think that they need to look at is transition. When Ryland Reese went down, their depth isn't as good as some of the other teams that are in top echelon. So I think that they'll be looking at that come draft time, if they can get a free agent or two. Defensive wise, Brad Gillies has been solid. Mitch Ogilvie has been solid. Of course, Paul Dawson is invaluable to have him there as the captain and the steady back horseman, because again, if you need someone to drop him, he's there. He even had a couple of goals this year in transition, which we don't see very often. Dan Coates, another fantastic player. If you want, again, transition-wise, Matt Gilray, hopefully will have a little bit more to do in transition. But if Reese is healthy and you have Gilray and Reese going at it, believe me, teams are going to be disheveled, which will set a lot of power plays because they're going to get a lot of penalties of teams jumping too soon. And of course, I even forgot one of our former guests, Thomas Hogarth, who are also having a good summer over in Peterborough with the Lakers, but had a great season this season and found his niche with soft hands in front of the net. But, being 6'3", 205, you're not going to move him. So to pick up rebounds and put it in, he's like a vacuum cleaner that way. In net, you have Hutchcraft as your backup, and you have Ryland Hartley. Healthy, Hartley is fantastic. The one strike against him is sometimes he gets a bit too emotional, and you can get into his head. With maturity, hopefully he's able to work that out, because that's known throughout the league. And teams spend an awful lot of time in that game trying to get into his head and get him moving and get him going. If he's playing just straight up, he's probably up there near Christian Del Bianco for help in transition with strong passes up the floor. Reminds me a lot of Mike Poulin in his prime, being able to really set that play going forward. And if you remember correctly, that 2017 Georgia team with Poulin in net, that was a big reason, was his crisp passes to set the transition going for the Swarm en route to their cup. Also with Peterborough en route to one of their man cups with Pooley and net. So it really matters. And Hartley has got
it also, what we learned in the championship is that there has to be a counterpunch. Like, the transition works great if it's working, but somehow you have to figure out a way to counterpunch as well. They just, well, anyway, just to add that point.
Absolutely. But as for just the lineup as it is, do I think that they're going to be moving upward? Yeah, I don't think that 6-0 was a fluke. I think that once they hit injuries, Patty O'Toole said it best when he was on a couple of weeks ago. Once they experienced injuries and didn't have the depth to curtail that, that's when they started having trouble. And then one thing led to another, and a 4-game losing streak down the stretch, and the next thing you know it, they're scampering for their lives to get into the playoffs, and then of course meet up with the big bad Bandits, who gave them a shellacking 20-8, and another lesson.
Yeah, confidence can be fragile.
Yeah, but again, they got into Hartley's head in that game. All kinds of rumors I had heard, but yeah, they had gotten into his head, and it was simple. Once his mind wasn't on the task at hand, a la Matt Royk from years ago, great until you can get him thinking about other things.
Absolutely.
And then that was the end of that.
Let's try this too, Gary. Just to, again, with a little looking forward now that the season's fresh in your mind. Tell me a couple of players that you think are on the cusp of greatness. Some names that pop in your head that say, I can't wait to see how much more he's going to improve next year. And next year could be his, what players do you think are on the verge of a breakout season?
Well, it's funny because, I don't know if it's hard to put him as a breakout season, because he's so great already. I look forward every time Jeff Teat plays. Every time Jeff Teat plays, there's something that's going to happen that makes you go, holy. I'm actually interested to see what Rich Lisk is going to do to give him a supporting cast over there, because they had that big cleanout, right? Mm-hmm. They had that big cleanout, and really, when you're looking at all the players that left, you're hoping that through the draft, through some free agency, that they're able to bolster that lineup, because you can't just rely on T going to get 12 points for you every single night. Simply put, they have a good nucleus. I like Mike Burke. I've always liked Mike Burke. He was the captain of the Brampton team before all the hoopla, before COVID and everything else. And I think he's going to be a great piece in there. Tyler Digby was a piece that Rich Lisk wanted all the way. Scott Dominey, we know him, former guest, former Toronto Rock. Flash is his nickname, and I'm hoping that he has a little bit more transition him. They tried to make him a little bit more of a stay-at-home defenseman. I personally say let him fly. Let him fly. Damon Edwards is still with the team. He's going to have another year or two left in him. Hopefully, he's able to show people a little bit more on there. Just a number of players. Their transition game, with Ron John, Jordy Jones-Smith, they're ready to go. But again, you got Connor Kiernan, Dan Lomas, both bona fide NLL stars. But they need something. They need that factor to just glue it all together. And that's something that they're missing. Like I picked New York to finish midway through this year. I didn't, when they start out Owen, Owen is a terrible guy, man. 0-5, 0-6. That makes for major changes. And the opening couple of games really could have gone either way. I figured when they were 0-6, they really should have been 3-3. They really were that decent of a team that this shouldn't have happened.
The management team was relatively new, right? There's a learning curve that New York had to go through, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they showed it by starting so slow.
Yeah, this is the third reincarnation of the team. At some point, the funny thing is that they're able to. Their marketing has been good enough that they're actually moving upward with tickets and moving upward with fan base. So at some point, they're going to have to produce, and I think that this is the year that they're going to have to, belly up to the bar and
they're running out of
put a showing in there. Yeah, well, you got youth goes a long way, but they need that cohesiveness. And like I say, if you got the greatest player of the modern era with Jeff Teat, what a shame if you're not able to do anything with him.
What do you think the biggest hole they have to fill for him specifically? Now, because it sounds to me that you're talking about somebody that can work with him on offense.
Riley O'Connor did a good job working with him, but it's easy to key off him. You look at a team like Buffalo that has 5 or 6 scorers that can just mix and match, kind of like bits and bytes. You pull your hand out and have a different group every time. It's still going to be productive. Here, if Teat's not on the floor, teams kind of take a little okay, but they need to be able to produce when he's taking a break too, because he's not going to be able to play 57 minutes every single night.
No,
and God forbid he actually gets hurt. Then what's
so what you're saying is they need somebody that well, I guess that it'd be more of a community thing.
I would call it a secondary playmaker.
Yeah, but they won't get that much floor time though. So how does that work? You know what I mean? Like it would have to be
he would have to be more of a
shooter. Yeah,
he would have to be more of a shooter and a playmaker. Shooter first, playmaker second, so he can be on the floor with Teat. But Teat can also take time off, and he's able to run the play, kind of as a secondary point guard in basketball.
Right, exactly. So
I can still play. It's not like he's going to ride the bench.
But has an ability to play, various roles.
I look at someone like an Ian McKay in Buffalo who's able to do anything you ask him.
Right.
I'm sure if they asked him to play net, he'd put on pads and make a few stops. But this guy was able to play 200 feet of the floor. If you needed him to play offense, he was offense. You needed him in transition, he was in transition. You needed him on D, he played D. It's going to be that kind of a versatile player. So they're really going to have to search for that special diamond in the rough. And they may have to go through 5, 6, 7, 10, 12 players to get that one to work and to be cohesive with Teat. Honestly, if I were them, I would try and see if I could pry Peterson.
Somebody that can manage the floor and also has the ability to take on another role.
If they could pry Clark Peterson from Halifax, remember that Peterson and Teat played together in Brampton Junior. They played together in Brampton MSL. They played together on Atlas and PLL. They played together in Cornell, and they were a great yin and yang. And that's exactly the player that I'm talking about as a secondary player. And I'll give you a bigger example that it worked was when Jeff Teat had to go in Canada to Netanya, Israel, whilst the Excelsiors were embroiled in their playoffs to go to the Minto Cup in the 2017 season. Peterson had to put the team on his back to get through an entire playoff series while Teat was away for that couple of weeks. Did it. Teak came back. They go back to 1-2, and away we go. That would be the perfect player if somehow New York is able to pry him away from Halifax. That would be a thought in my mind as the one to do.
Well, we'll let that be the last word. We're out of time right now. Gary, thanks for doing this, buddy.
Oh, it's my pleasure as always, Frank. It's always great to talk lacrosse.
Well, Cam Milligan, we'll try to get him in, folks. He couldn't make it today, and for player from the MLS and, of course, the NLL. We'll hopefully get him in another week. For Gary Groob, I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching NLL Lacrosse Talk, seen live Thursdays at 4 p.m. usually, but today on Friday. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Lacrosse Talk, news, entertainment, and other sports programming we offer, please check out Spanglish World. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Don't forget Candid Frank Stanisci on YouTube. Thanks for watching, everybody.